Greetings, friends. Now, because of the success of my last video where I just sort of answered questions and rambled, if you will, I think I'll try something in a similar vein on this video. But if you like what you hear, please like, share, and subscribe. Help me to reach my goal of 15,000 subscribers by the end of the year. I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you. Anyway, what I wanted to bring up was the idea of the story, that the narrative, that mythological theme, if you will, that universal ideas can be conveyed through, or philosophy can be better conveyed through story, let's say, than through a lecture. An example would be, let's take Star Wars. Now, that original trilogy, that followed the hero's journey narrative. That idea of the individual who is in a sense lost, who has a mentor, who leaves home. When I mean lost is lack of direction. Who leaves home, finds that mentor, dies of their old nature in a sense, is reborn, Luke as a Jedi, and then eventually rescues his father, in a sense, saves his father's soul. Now that is universal, timeless. That theme has been around for thousands of years. That's why that trilogy was so successful. And it's also the reason why this new trilogy, the one put out by J.J. Abrams, is shit. Because it tries to deconstruct all that. It's trying to create something new and different and basically antithetical to that idea of the hero's journey. That's why it will not linger in the hearts and minds of humanity. It'll be gone, and well, it's pretty much already forgotten. Now, if you think about it, most of us here on the left-hand path, we are drawn toward story and the story narrative, the idea of metaphor, the idea of the anti-hero. We very much are drawn toward the anti-hero. We are drawn toward the darker aspects of reality. And the anti-hero striving, struggling, combating the forces of order or chaos to achieve their own personal goals. To put it simply, I, like most of us, love a good narrative. And because of this love of the narrative, I'd like to share my top 5 favorite writers. The first is a little-known author, not too many of you might be familiar with. His name is Jack Vance. Now, Jack Vance was a close friend of Frank Herbert's, the guy who wrote Dune. Now, Vance wrote sci-fi, fantasy, back in the mid-20th century, if you will. He died roughly 10 years ago in his later 90s. Bay Area guy, like myself. His pivotal work, is probably his most well-known formative work, is The Dying Earth. And what that is, it's Earth, maybe few billion years in the future, the sun is just a shrinking red star. The sky is a dark blue color. The mountains have been worn down, and civilization, if you will, is a chaotic fusion of science and magic and so on and so forth. Highly recommended work, The Dying Earth. If you can find it, pick it up. His imagination is absolutely incredible. He puts more in one page than a lot of authors do in a whole story or book. So, Jack Vance, recommend him highly. Now, the next, who would be next? Okay. Next would be probably Clive Barker. Now, we're all familiar with Hellraiser. But have you ever read the book, The Hellbound Heart, that Hellraiser's based upon? Have you read the Books of Blood or The Damnation Game? All outstanding works. His theme, basically, and I love this, and also Nightbreed, or the book Cabal. His theme is, are the monsters really all that monstrous? If you think about it, the Cenobites, were they really all that bad? And in Nightbreed, the movie, you feel sympathy for the monsters, while the real villains, in the case of Nightbreed, was the psychopath under the mask, played by the great director David Cronenberg. So yeah, number 2 would be Clive Barker. He's had a huge influence on me. His narrative structure, his just the beautiful use of words, and what he can convey beyond the standard horror tropes. So yeah, Clive Barker. Okay, the next on my list would have to be Cormac McCarthy. Now, he is considered by many to be the greatest living American writer. He is most famous probably for No Country for Old Men, that novel, and then the outstanding film based on the novel. Another book would be The Road, a post-apocalyptic tale about the relationship between a father and son and how they strive to survive in an absolute hellish environment. But to me, his magnum opus is Blood Meridian, set around the year 1850 on the border of Texas and Mexico, where you have a band of scalp hunters, American mostly, scalp hunters who go about taking the scalps of the wild Comanches and Apaches and then sells them to the Mexican government. They're hired by the Mexican government to take out these violent indigenous peoples. And it's based on a true story, an actual band of scalp hunters called the Glanton Gang. But in this story, the character that everyone is drawn to, if you've ever read the book, is the judge. The judge is more than human. It's been theorized that he could possibly have been a djinn, or maybe he's a metaphor for, I don't know, the demiurge. He is a diabolical character. He is so diabolical that even someone like Hannibal Lecter would go, this guy's fucked up. But something about him is intriguing because he's a mega genius. He's a massive man, completely airless, almost like a giant baby. That's the way you kind of picture him. But like I said, the most brilliant individual ever. And the question is in the book, what does he represent? And there have been college courses on trying to figure out what does the judge represent. So, Cormac McCarthy, Blood Meridian. Next on this list would be Robert E. Howard. Now, Robert E. Howard, he was the author that had the earliest influence upon me. He is best known for his Conan the Barbarian stories. And when I'm talking about Conan, I'm not talking about Arnold's Conan or Jason Momoa or that fucking horrendous series from the 1990s, that big German guy playing Conan. I'm talking about those 18 stories written by Robert E. Howard from 1932 to 1936. He didn't write any more Conan stories after 1936 because he put a bullet in his head. These stories, you find them in their original form, are outstanding. Howard wrote other stories besides those strictly about Conan. For instance, King Kull was another one of his characters. He's more or less a precursor to Conan. There was also Bram MacMorn, Solomon Kane. So you get a chance, check out Robert E. Howard's stories, his original stories, not the bastardized versions that have been altered by later writers, but the original Robert E. Howard stories written for the pulp magazines in the 1930s. Recommend him highly. And of course, number one, without a doubt, would have to be H.P. Lovecraft. I've talked about Lovecraft numerous times in numerous videos. Howard was the original, let's say, individual who got me into weird fiction, if you will. Lovecraft was the one who solidified it in my mind as a kind of fiction that just truly resonated with me. Now, as a child, when I read Lovecraft, he confused the hell out of me. His language is kind of hard to digest because he writes in a almost, I don't know, 18th century manner. It's when you get to the deep, dark core of it, when you allow the stories to more or less wash over you, and the sensation you get, it's his stories hit me deeper than any other author. Cosmic horror, cosmicism, the idea that the universe doesn't give a fuck about you. If anything, the universe wants to destroy you, and you have to do your best in this chaotic universe. That's the basic theme. Yes, I know Lovecraft was racist. A lot of people were back then. I think if he lived a little bit longer, he might have softened a bit on his xenophobia, if you will. Just because he had bad ideas when it came to, let's say, sociology, you can't dismiss his genius. And because of this, I've written Lovecraftian stories, if you will. And down below, I'll have a link to one of those stories that I had written. Let me know what you think. Read that story. Let me know what you think. And let me know what you think the moral of the story is, because there's definitely a moral to that tale. And also give me in the comments, give me a list of your favorite writers, your favorite books, who's influenced you, and what about those stories has moved you, has changed you. Because a story can be more effective than a lecture on so many levels. So my friends, check out that link down below. Let me know what you think, and I'll talk to you later.